June 20th, 1993. Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls superstar shooting guard, has scored 9 points in the fourth quarter. It's June. Anyone familiar with the NBA scheduling is aware of what time of the year it is. It's the season finale, the 1993 NBA Finals, featuring the Chicago Bulls on the road against the Phoenix Suns with a chance to win Game 6 and seal their destiny. 14.1 seconds to go, Chicago trails 98-96. They need to score here. Jordan had ensured his team would triumph, as his 9 points in the closing minutes was the most amongst both teams. Hell, it's the only points his team has scored in the whole quarter. All by Jordan. But Jordan was not the hero for today. Well, he had 33 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds. But to the showstopper goes the glory. And the showstopper on that Sunday night was John Paxson, who iconically scored a 3-point shot to crown the Chicago Bulls the NBA champions. The legends in red basked in their victories, a preordained grandeur expected to be endless.
He wanted that basketball, signifying the third world championship.
April 19th, 2024. The Chicago Bulls are ousted in the play-in tournament by the Miami Heat. Chicago finished the 2023-24 season with a lousy record. Good enough to win almost 40 games, but bad enough to lose more than that. 82 is a lot of games to play, and the Bulls would alternate between flair and fiasco. Back-to-back years of mediocrity for a team which appeared bright during its conception. The defeat in the play-in game was the final tolling of the bells. So closes the DeMar DeRozan, Billy Donovan, Zach LaVine, whatever you want to call that era. DeMar DeRozan was the first pillar to fall. Around the beginning of July, the Sacramento Kings made a move for the 6-time All-Star in a 3-team sign-and trade. Chicago received essentially nothing in return for a talent who averaged 24 and 5 a game last season. But they had no leverage, since DeRozan was walking regardless. A trade to a preferred destination was a win-win for all parties involved. Chicago gained little from this trade because of their refusal to part with the aging star until he'd lost his luster and was no longer a significant asset. The Bulls' biggest fault was their resistance to alter the established squad. The front office either had eternal faith in their fading core, or they were blind men walking off a ledge. The latter seems unbelievable because the writing was all over the wall. Countless examples have been laid out, especially in recent years, in regards to teams waiting too long to pull the trigger and blow everything up. The initial surge in the 2021-22 season was fool's gold. It gave the franchise an unattainable benchmark. The Bulls finished 6th in the East with a sub-40 win record, but that does not tell the complete story, because between the 1st and the 20th of January 2022, the Bulls held the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They were on pace to win 59 games by that date. They had put the NBA on notice, but their height would quickly vanish as floor general Lonzo Ball suffered a season-ending injury which disabled the engine of the Bulls' offense. And in hindsight, their hopes of Ball returning would be their demise. To Chicago's credit, they assumed he'd return sometime in the 2022-23 season and that the team would build off of DeRozan's All-NBA selection and LaVine's projected rise to stardom. When Zoe was playing, the squad was extremely promising. He was producing at a high level on both ends of the floor. LaVine and DeRozan were electrifying as a scoring duo. Then you had a former All-Star Nikola Vucevic, and Alex Caruso was their defensive specialist. At full throttle, this team was competing with the best of them. Their undoing was injuries, regression, and complacency. Lonzo Ball suffered one of the most catastrophic knee injuries we've ever seen. He suffered a meniscus tear on his left knee back in January of 2022 when the Bulls were blazing. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ball's knee leading up to the injury was essentially 2 bones rubbing together trying to start a fire. Tears from his days on the Lakers had gradually eroded the remaining cartilage in the joint. Over 2 full years later, he is finally preparing for his return to the court. Ball's situation has forced the team to restructure as if he's no longer there, while still being handicapped with his contract. but there's more to the downfall of the Chicago Bulls than Lonzo Ball's absence. As great as Ball was while he was playing, he was not the main attraction. Zach LaVine was the man in Chicago. LaVine became the head of the Snake Bull upon arrival. He stepped into a role that had been left vacant after the fall of Derrick Rose. In the post-Michael Jordan era, only 2 players have been the face of the Chicago Bulls. The first was the aforementioned Derrick Rose, who became the youngest MVP in the league while wearing a Bulls uniform. The other player is Zach LaVine. Now, LaVine is in no way comparable to Derrick Rose. I mean, anyone from Chicago will tell you the entrenching impact Rose left on the city. But prior to last season, Zach LaVine had been the hope of the Chicago Bulls for 5 seasons. Between the 2019 to the 2023 season, LaVine averaged 25 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds on 48% from the field and 39% from 3. In the eyes of Bulls fans, he was the future of the team, and it was paramount the front office built around him. But a disappointing, injury-shortened campaign in the 2023-24 season has placed him on the hot seat. At 28 years old, Zach LaVine's timeline does not harmonize with the teams, who are currently heading into a rebuild. But there's absolutely no chance in hell the Bulls are walking away with the King's ransom from a Zach LaVine trade. His putrid contract comes second to only Bradley Beal's in terms of how inappropriate it is given the player's output. In the summer of 22, after their remarkable season, the Chicago Bulls signed Zach LaVine to a 5-year, $215 million max extension without hesitation. It was the right choice at the time, since he was coming off back-to-back All-Star years. There were no signs 2 years ago that LaVine's signature of commitment would end up being the team's death warrant. Now, his numbers on paper make this sound like an overreaction. I mean, the guy was averaging 25 a night. One bad year, now he's unserviceable. Well, we can't give him that much grace because Zach LaVine is the perfect example of empty stats. Think about this. Last season, he scored 20 or more points in 12 out of the 25 games he played, which already sounds unhinged for a guy making $40 million a year. In those 12 games, the Chicago Bulls had a record of 3 wins to 9 losses. In said games, he had an average plus-minus of 1.8, so he literally contributed a 2-point boost whenever he did anything besides cardio on the court. He dropped 51 and still lost to the Detroit Pistons. Now, before anyone leaves with the impression that LaVine is some kind of stat patter, that's not really the case. Zach LaVine is a tremendous talent. I know Chicago fans will disagree. The man is simply a victim of his playstyle. His abilities don't translate to winning. A high-volume shooter who lacks playmaking and can't play defense cannot be the star of a heliocentric offense. His optimal role would be as a second or third option orbiting a true number 1, but his price tag makes teams reluctant to go for him. LaVine will generate instant offense anywhere he goes, and NBA teams aren't stockpiled with scores of his caliber. There's plenty situations where he would add tremendous value, and some teams would turn into contenders with him on their roster. The catch is, they can't overcompensate to acquire him. If LaVine was a free agent at this moment, he'd attract attention from numerous teams across the league. The man has plenty of value, but it's not worth $200 million. Approaching his exit from Chicago, he's burned plenty of bridges. The fans, the front office, even head coach Billy Donovan are at odds with their once favored star. He had his shine snatched away from him by DeMar DeRozan, who had informally become the guy in Chicago. DeRozan captured the hearts of the fans, and dare I say his 3-year stint with the Bulls will be remembered more fondly than LaVine's near decade-long service to the Windy City. With the emergence of Kobe White, the people of Chicago can't wait to send this dude packing. Just go on any of the Bulls' social media posts regarding LaVine and read the comments. He's overstayed his welcome, and he's justifiably been irritable about the whole thing. So there's zero love lost between LaVine and anyone associated with the Chicago Bulls. Sometimes a clean slate is the best outcome for everyone. Just rinse off everything and start over. The ghost in Chicago has kept his former team in his shadow since his departure in '99. The Bulls pursue a second reign on the throne with an ownership group who are detested by the fans. Their complacency has caused the Zach LaVine situation to unfold in such a manner. They have no regard for the success of the team. As long as jerseys get sold and home games are packed, the owners will cruise. It is a shame what's become of an old club that was once the golden standard. A lot has changed since the Bulls had their dynasty. A lot that has amounted to nothing at all. So nothing has happened, and that's precisely the problem. Thanks for watching.